Hi, I'm here with my friend Christina in her little tiny curl corner, which is at her house, and we're just going to be chatting today about tiny curl and you. Can you just talk a little about yourself in your earlier life, where you were born, where you grew up, your childhood?
I was born in Miami, and I grew up in Miami. I was always pretty creative. I always was drawing or like making things out of garbage, typically. Like snow globes with Gatorade bottles and glitter. Oh. That was like one of my earliest craft memories. And I studied communication and editing in college in Tallahassee, and then I started a food truck. It was kind of like a weird veer, and then I wanted to go back to school, so I went to Miami Ad School and FIU, and I got my master's in communication and art direction. After that, I went to a small retail agency where I worked with big brands, and then I kept doing crochet and kind of illustrations and creative stuff on the side, and I knew I wanted to pursue that, so it was the perfect time. So I started doing Tiny Curl.
Can you just talk about how Tiny Curl has expanded and like where it is now?
So I started crocheting in 2012, and I was making like blankets or pillows or like the things that typically you would find crochet patterns for. And then I really love illustration, like I'm always doodling, and I just like making characters, and I realized I could crochet the characters I was drawing, and pretty much last year was when I made my first doll, and he was pretty sad. But I love him. Like, he doesn't have arms, and his name's Henry, and he's just like kind of a sad guy, but he's my first creation, yeah. There's endless opportunity with crochet and dolls and illustration, all of the whole package, and those are like all my favorite things. Right. So that's why I kind of wanted to start Tiny Curl.
Was the transition from sort of like corporate America to your own business smooth, or was it challenging?
It was very challenging.
Why?
Working from home is just very lonely, kind of. Like, I'm used to working with other people, and I'm really introverted, so I don't go out of my way to hang out with people. So it's really great that you go to work and you talk to people because you have to. So when you work from home, like I do now, it's so lonely, and like I just talk to my cats, basically. And like, there's no one telling me, you need to do this today. It's all me.
It's all on you.
Yeah, so I can do as much or as little, and
that can be hard.
It's hard. It's kind of challenging in that sense, but besides that, it's really freeing to just do whatever I want any day that I feel like I want to crochet, or if I feel like I want to take pictures that day, or do a branding piece. I can change it up depending on my mood.
What about the name Tiny Curl? How did you come up with that? Because that's a pretty interesting name.
My husband Kyle, he calls me Curl. And so I've always just had like Tiny Curl as usernames like on random sites if I didn't want to use my actual name. Previously I had a name called Yes to Weird before I changed it to Tiny Curl, but it was so limiting. Like, I didn't want to just make weird things or like subversive things. I wanted to make also cute things, and I feel like Tiny Curl is a perfect name because it's not limiting at all. I could make jewelry, I could make an illustration, I could make crochet, I could make anything, and it could still fall under Tiny Curl with my personality and my aesthetic.
What is your ultimate goal for your business?
That's a good question. My ultimate goal would be able to be making a full-time living from just my creative pursuits. So I'm doing Tiny Curl full-time with some part-time work on the side, and I would love to have Tiny Curl just be my entire income.
Yeah.
And I'm really getting more into pattern writing, so I'll make my dolls and then I'll write patterns for them so that someone else can make the same thing. There's so many people in patterns, but there's not a lot of people doing dolls, or they're called amigurumi, which is like small knitted or crochet thing in Japanese. So I wanted to get more into making my designs into patterns so that people can make them. So that's like where I'm going right now, but my ultimate goal would be that it could be my full-time income.
Right. If, let's say, you weren't focusing on Tiny Curl and this wasn't becoming your life, where do you think you'd be at this point?
One of the reasons I went into doing Tiny Curl is because I was looking for something that was small and just a very creative and very honest living. Like, there's so many corporations out there that they're not always honest, or they're doing things that are kind of like bullshitty.
Right.
And I just can't do it. Like, it's one of my things is like, I just can't. Like, So I would be maybe working for like a smaller shop or a smaller company that was very honest in and had their values aligned with mine, and really interested in their employees' work-life balance.
I love that.
Super
it's so
important.
Beautiful. Whenever I look at your posts or Insta stories, they're all so well produced. Like the content is very high quality.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. So I wanted to ask, what goes into planning that? Like, do you wake up and you say, "This is the outfit I'm gonna wear," and this is the cat I'm gonna dance with today? Like, how do you plan that content out?
Yeah, for my actual photo, like my feed, my pictures, it's much more produced. I'm taking pictures with like a bounce light, a professional camera, like a DSLR, and then I'll edit them on my computer, send them back to my phone, and post them from there. So that is one thing. My Instagram stories are completely unplanned. I don't really even wear makeup. Like I don't wear makeup. I don't plan anything. Like it's just what I'm doing that day, and sometimes like the day isn't shareable. There's such a preconceived notion that people that are living creatively or living creative lives, their whole life looks like an Instagram picture, and it's just not true. Like I'm sitting here just working and like crocheting, and that's my entire day. So I'm gonna share part of it so that people can actually see the reality of my life or other creative people's lives. So.
Do you have any recommendations as to how somebody can grow their following if they're just starting out, if they're trying to get exposure? Because in the few months that you've been doing this, your following on Instagram has grown like tremendously. So do you have any tips for people?
I would recommend utilizing hashtags. Like everyone says it because it works. So finding the hashtags of your target audience and using those, because that's how people are going to find you. It's really hard for people to find you if you don't make yourself findable.
Of course.
So for crochet, I use a lot of crochet hashtags, not just hashtag crochet, but weirder hashtags or less common hashtag like hashtag creative life, happy life. So people that are interested in creativity and colorful pictures, they're going to go to those hashtags and find me. And then something that's been extremely helpful for me is bigger accounts sharing my work. So by taking really good pictures and making content that big accounts want to share, you're going to do well by yourself because they'll share it, and then their followers will find you. You have to have good content first, because if you don't have good content and someone finds you, they're just going to leave. You have to keep them there and make them want to follow you.
In terms of consistency of posting, you do it on the regular, like almost every day, right? Is that something you recommend for other people?
With the algorithm change, everyone's talking about the algorithm because no one understands it at this point. Before, it was chronological. Now the algorithm is, if I like every single one of your posts, they're gonna show up higher on my feed. So it's kind of like whatever posts get the most engagement, they're higher on people's feeds. So it's kind of hard. I find that every day is good because you're just creating more opportunities for people to find you. But I've been trying doing once a day, but I think once or every other day is fine. It used to be the more you post, the more people see you because of the order. But now it doesn't matter.
Now it changed. I know you have a cat or two, or 3 or 4. Can you tell me about them? Because Alfie's like, I feel like the star because he's featured in your story a lot. But what about the other ones?
Alfie is my oldest cat, and he's the Persian cat, and he is my gift from God, and he's beautiful. He's my beauty son. He's my soulmate. So, and I think we do look like twins. Like, we're very similar looking. And then my next cat is Percival, and we adopted him when he was already a 1.5 years old. And he is very large. He's the fat one. And then I found a cat in a bush. His name is Doodle. And I found him in a bush by my old job, and I took him home, and then he kissed my husband on the lips. And so we had to keep him. So that's Doodle. And then we have an outdoor cat that was born under the house before we moved in, and she's lived here. She's lived here since we moved in, and like we befriended her. Marty. Yeah. She lives outside. She doesn't like to come in.
I don't know how to categorize these questions. They're just kind of random ones that I thought of towards the end, but I still want to find out. So, what is your biggest fear?
I don't know. Like, this is so serious. It's like what I grapple with is like the meaninglessness of life. Like, my biggest fear is that I won't get over that. Like, that I'll just constantly be ruminating over it and like being upset about it instead of embracing it. I always think about like the quote where you say nothing matters, and you can either take that positively, like nothing matters, like I can pursue anything I want and do anything, or nothing matters, like what am I doing, like nothing matters, so why am I doing anything? So like that's my biggest fear, is like falling into that for too long.
Yeah, that's definitely scary. Oh, God, that's deep. What is the last thing you ate?
I made blueberry pancakes this morning.
Really?
Yeah.
From scratch?
Yeah.
Oh, how were they?
They were so tasty.
Sounds delicious.
Yeah, it was a big meal. It was tasty.
Yeah. What is the last thing you smelled? The last scent, like a memorable smell that you remember.
I guess the candle. We have a candle lit.
Oh yeah, that's true. It's like,
So
what
candle.
scent is that? It's very nice.
That is from Diptyque.
When was the last time you cried and why?
Cried? Oh my god, I cried daily.
Yeah, me too.
I cried all the time. I probably cried yesterday. I typically cry of like if things are too cute or beautiful.
Oh yeah.
Like happy cry is like my normal now. Like to cry when I'm sad is kind of like rare. Like I will have a tear if something is too nice or too cute. So it's probably like when I look at my cat, sometimes I cry. Like
he's so cute. Oh my god.
Like it makes me shed a tear.
Yeah.
So it's probably yesterday.
That's worth crying.
Yeah.
What is the one thing that you're most proud of for accomplishing this week specifically?
This week?
Yeah.
Oh my god. I'm working on 3 patterns for an upcoming book, and I finished the patterns. They're still in the works, but I finished writing the first draft of the patterns, and that was like such an accomplishment of just like finishing the first draft and like sending it off, and that was super good.
Good for you.
Thank you.
I think in any interview that I'm going to do from now on, this is just going to be a standard question just because she's my idol. And it's Martha Stewart, and the question is, what is your opinion on her? Just what do you think in general?
I think she's a cold bitch.
She is a cold bitch, but what a businesswoman.
Such a businesswoman.
The businesswoman.
The businesswoman, and she's made a career from her creativity.
Yeah.
Like without any regret, without any apology. Like she gets it done. I just think she's a little like too cold for me. Like I like more of like, you know,
someone
cozy.
Yeah,
like,
she
terrifies me. Yeah, like she honestly.
But I think that's kind of what helped her.
Yeah.
Especially after she went to jail. I mean, she bounced back, and I feel like not everybody can do that. So
yeah.
I commend her for that.
Absolutely.
What's the one thing you want people to know about you? The one thing you want them to take away?
I think everyone says it. It's like, if I can do it, you can do it. Like, the only thing stopping anyone from pursuing their creativity is just doing it. When I found this calling of crochet, like when I started crocheting and then I started connecting it with my illustration, it was just something that I couldn't stop doing. And so I would do it in the car, I would do it at home when I was watching TV, I would do it without even thinking about it. And that's what I really think is the key, is like pursuing something that you can't stop doing. I think that's just the key for finding your creative passion.
That's how you know, like, it's meant for you then.
Exactly, because even if no one paid me to do it, I would still do it. Even if no one looked at it, I would still do it. So I'm just putting it out there. I'm still going to be making my stuff and still doing it. So that's, I would want to pass that knowledge along, is just find what you can't help doing and find what you can't stop doing or thinking about, and then just do it, share it, and see what happens.
It's beautiful. And I think that message from you to me definitely translated. Like, I've absorbed a lot of like that positive thinking and motivational thinking, and that kind of helped me, you know, like push my own creativity further, because I saw like what you were able to do by yourself on your own, and like turn like nothing into all this. And I think that's so beautiful, and I really think like people can be inspired by that. So I think you're doing a lot of good for yourself, for the world. And I want to thank you for inviting me to your beautiful home, to your corner. And thank you for being with me.
Thank you.
I love you.
Love you.